Let me ask you something, and I want you to really think about this. Have you ever noticed that some men seem almost obsessed with going down on their partner? Like they don't just do it, they want to do it. They initiate it. They seem to genuinely enjoy it. And meanwhile, you're sitting there wondering why. What is going on in his mind? Is it physical? Is it psychological? Is it about love, desire, dominance, or something else entirely? Because here's the thing. Most women have never been given a clear, honest, science-based answer to this question. And without that answer, it creates confusion, it creates insecurity, and sometimes it even creates distance in what could be a deeply intimate moment. Well, today, that changes. We're going to look at the psychology, biology, attraction, emotional connection, and relationship dynamics that can explain why some men genuinely enjoy giving their partner pleasure, and perhaps more importantly, what his behavior may or may not mean about the way he feels about you. And if you've ever found yourself lying beside someone you trust, while a quiet voice in your head asks, "Does he really want to be doing this? Or what is he thinking about my body?" I want you to stay with me, because those questions are much more common than you probably realize. If you've ever struggled with feeling comfortable receiving affection or pleasure, tell me in the comments. You don't have to share anything private. Even simply writing, "I've felt this way," can remind another woman that she isn't alone. Mary Smith, host of Senior Mindful Living YouTube channel. And today, we're going to have one of those conversations that can change the way you see intimacy, not because there's one secret explanation that applies to every man, but because understanding the psychology behind sexual generosity can help you stop filling in the blanks with your insecurities. Let's begin with something simple. Men are not all motivated by the same thing. That's important. One man may genuinely enjoy making his partner feel good. Another may find his partner's reactions intensely arousing. Someone else may experience it as an expression of closeness, trust, or affection. Another person may simply enjoy exploring what his partner likes. And sometimes, several of these motivations exist at the same time. Human sexuality is rarely controlled by one switch in the brain. Attraction, reward, attachment, curiosity, confidence, emotional closeness, and physical arousal can overlap. That's why trying to reduce a man's behavior to "he does it because he loves you" or "he does it because he's dominant" can actually miss the bigger picture. The first piece is the reward system. Your brain doesn't only reward you for receiving pleasure. Human beings can also experience satisfaction from seeing someone they care about experience something positive. Think about a completely non-sexual example. Imagine cooking a meal for someone you love. You watch their face when they take the first bite, and they smile. Part of your happiness comes from their happiness. The same basic principle can appear in intimate relationships. When a man knows that something he is doing is making his partner feel good, her response can become part of his own reward experience. Her relaxation, affection, emotional closeness, and visible enjoyment can reinforce his desire to continue. This is one reason some men genuinely enjoy being attentive lovers. It's not necessarily an act. They may actually find the experience rewarding in its own right. And this brings us to something psychologists and relationship researchers have repeatedly observed. Sexual satisfaction tends to be connected to a sense of mutuality. People generally report greater satisfaction when intimacy doesn't feel like one person taking and the other person giving. Instead, there's a sense of exchange. I care about your experience, and you care about mine. That feeling can be deeply powerful. For some men, giving pleasure is therefore not simply something they do before they get what they want. The giving itself can become part of what they want. But there's another layer that matters just as much: connection. Physical intimacy requires a certain degree of vulnerability. You're allowing another person into a part of your life that you don't expose to everyone. That vulnerability can strengthen feelings of closeness when the relationship already contains trust and emotional safety. This is where attachment psychology becomes relevant. Secure relationships tend to involve comfort with vulnerability, responsiveness, communication, and mutual care. In a healthy, intimate relationship, partners don't simply ask, "What do I want?" They become interested in another question: "What does my partner experience?" That shift from performance to curiosity is extremely important. A man who pays attention to your reactions, asks what you like, respects boundaries, and adjusts his behavior isn't simply demonstrating sexual skill. He's demonstrating responsiveness. And responsiveness is one of the foundations of emotional intimacy. Now, here's where things become especially interesting. Sometimes a man's enjoyment isn't only about making you happy. Your pleasure can actually intensify his own attraction. When you're emotionally connected to someone, their reactions can influence your own emotional and physical state. Seeing someone you desire become relaxed, excited, or deeply engaged can create a feedback loop. You respond to him. He responds to you. You feel more comfortable. He senses that comfort. You become more present. The connection becomes stronger. And suddenly, intimacy feels less like a performance and more like a conversation without words. That's one reason genuine sexual generosity can be so powerful. But there's an important distinction I want every woman watching this to remember. His enjoyment does not automatically mean he loves you, and his willingness to do something intimate does not automatically reveal his entire emotional state. A man can enjoy giving pleasure without being deeply emotionally attached. A man can love you deeply and still have different sexual preferences. A man can be enthusiastic one day and less interested another day. Human behavior changes with stress, health, mood, relationship dynamics, medication, fatigue, and countless other factors. So don't use one sexual behavior as a test for whether someone loves you. Look at the entire relationship. Does he listen? Does he respect your boundaries? Does he care when you're upset? Does he make time for you? Does he communicate honestly? Does he show affection outside the bedroom? Does he care about your comfort even when there is nothing in it for him? Those behaviors tell you far more about emotional investment than any single sexual act. Now let's talk about one of the biggest obstacles women face in these situations: self-consciousness. A woman may be completely comfortable with her partner emotionally and still suddenly become intensely aware of her body during intimate moments. She may think about appearance. She may worry about natural scent. She may wonder whether something looks unusual. She may start monitoring her partner's facial expression. And suddenly, she's no longer experiencing the moment. She's watching herself experience it. Psychologists sometimes describe this kind of excessive self-monitoring as spectatoring. Instead of being immersed in sensation and connection, you're mentally stepping outside yourself and evaluating how you're performing. And that can make intimacy much harder. Think about the difference between these two thoughts. How am I doing? Versus, what am I feeling? Those questions take you in completely different directions. The first puts you into evaluation mode. The second brings you back into your body. So here's a practical exercise. The next time you're feeling self-conscious during intimacy, don't force yourself to suddenly become confident. Instead, practice body neutrality. Tell yourself, I don't have to look perfect. I don't have to perform. I don't have to impress anyone. I can simply be here. That's it. You don't have to convince yourself that every part of your body is beautiful every second. You only need to give yourself permission to exist comfortably inside it. And if you're thinking, but what if he notices something I don't like about myself? Remember this, your partner is not necessarily looking at your body through the same psychological lens you are. You know every insecurity you've ever had. He doesn't. You may focus on one tiny detail while he is experiencing the person he is attracted to as a whole. This is something women often forget. Attraction isn't a medical inspection. It's emotional, it's sensory, it's relational, it's personal. And bodies naturally vary enormously. There isn't one correct shape, color, size, or appearance. That matters because unrealistic expectations can quietly damage sexual confidence. And sexual confidence isn't about believing you're flawless. It's about becoming less afraid of being seen. Now, let's talk about natural scent and changes in the genital area, because this is another source of anxiety. A healthy vagina naturally has an odor. It isn't supposed to smell like perfume or soap. But there's a difference between a normal individual scent and a sudden strong or unpleasant odor, accompanied by symptoms such as unusual discharge, irritation, itching, or discomfort. If something changes noticeably, don't shame yourself and don't try to cover it with harsh products. Talk to a qualified healthcare professional. Many common vaginal and vulvar conditions are treatable. The goal isn't to make your body smell artificial. The goal is to understand what's normal for you and recognize when something has changed. And please remember this, hygiene should support health, not become a battle against your body. Now, there's another important scientific point. For many women, external clitoral stimulation plays a major role in orgasm. This is one reason penetration alone doesn't produce orgasm for everyone. There is enormous variation in female sexual response, and there is absolutely nothing inherently wrong with needing or preferring additional stimulation. This is where communication becomes incredibly valuable. Instead of expecting your partner to magically know what works, give him information. You can say, "That's good, slower, stay there, a little more pressure, try this." These aren't criticisms, they're directions. Think of intimacy like learning a language together. Nobody expects two people to communicate perfectly in a language they've never spoken before. You learn, you listen, you adjust, you pay attention, and you improve. The same principle applies to sexual communication. But there's one more issue we need to discuss: performance. Sometimes a woman realizes that her partner gets extremely excited by making her feel good, and she starts feeling responsible for maintaining that excitement. She may exaggerate reactions. She may pretend something feels better than it does. She may think, "I don't want to disappoint him." Please be careful with that. Authentic communication is ultimately more intimate than performance. If you teach your partner that something feels good when it doesn't, you're giving him inaccurate information. And eventually, both of you become trapped inside a pattern neither of you understands. Instead, think about honesty as generosity. If something doesn't feel good, you don't have to criticize. You can redirect. "Can we try something different?" That's a little too much pressure. "Could you slow down?" That's not rejection, that's collaboration. And for many emotionally mature partners, that kind of guidance actually increases intimacy because it creates trust. Now, let's consider another type of man, the man who seems almost fascinated by his partner's reactions. He wants to learn. He notices subtle changes. He remembers what worked. He asks questions. He becomes curious. That curiosity can be healthy when it's grounded in respect. It tells you something valuable. He isn't simply following a script. He's paying attention to you as an individual. And that distinction matters. Because the healthiest intimacy isn't about performing the right technique. It's about discovering what works for two specific people. Another man may experience sexual generosity as an expression of affection. Maybe he naturally communicates love through touch. Maybe he enjoys acts of service. Maybe giving is simply how he expresses care. For him, intimacy may communicate something like, "I want you to feel cared for. I want you to feel safe. I want you to know that your experience matters to me." Again, that doesn't mean every man who enjoys giving pleasure is secretly declaring eternal love. But within an established loving relationship, sexual generosity can absolutely become one of the ways affection is expressed. And here's something I want you to think about. What if the real question isn't, "Why does he like doing this?" What if the more important question is, "How does he make me feel when he does it?" Do you feel safe? Do you feel respected? Do you feel listened to? Do you feel free to say yes or no? Do you feel like your pleasure matters? Do you feel emotionally connected afterward? Those questions tell you much more. Because healthy intimacy isn't simply about what happens physically. It's about what happens emotionally before, during, and after. So if you're the woman who has been pushing away affection because you've been worried about your body, start small. Don't force yourself into anything. Instead, practice receiving compliments without immediately rejecting them. Practice looking at your body without criticizing it. Practice telling your partner one thing you genuinely enjoy. Practice taking a slow breath when you notice yourself becoming self-conscious. And most importantly, practice remembering that receiving pleasure isn't selfish. You don't owe anyone intimacy. But when you freely choose intimacy with someone you trust, you are allowed to receive. You are allowed to relax. You are allowed to be cared for. You are allowed to have preferences. And you're allowed to change your mind. That last point is important. Consent isn't something you give once and then permanently owe someone. Healthy intimacy remains voluntary and mutual. A caring partner will respect that. And if your partner pressures you, ignores your boundaries, or makes you feel guilty for saying no, that's a relationship issue, not a sexual technique issue. So let's bring everything together. Why do some men genuinely enjoy giving their partners pleasure? There isn't one answer. For some, it's arousing. For some, it's emotionally intimate. For some, it's rewarding to see their partner respond. For some, it's curiosity and exploration. For some, it's a way of expressing affection. For others, it's simply a sexual preference they enjoy. And for many, it's a combination of all of these things. The important lesson isn't that you should interpret one sexual behavior as proof of love. The important lesson is that you don't have to automatically assume he's secretly judging you. If he consistently initiates affection, respects your boundaries, pays attention to your responses, communicates openly, and seems genuinely happy when you're comfortable and enjoying yourself, Those are meaningful signs of mutual intimacy. And perhaps the most important message I want you to remember is this. Your insecurity is not always telling you the truth. Sometimes it's simply repeating an old story. Maybe I'm not attractive enough. Maybe my body isn't normal. Maybe he doesn't really want me. Maybe I'm asking for too much. But sometimes the reality is much simpler. Someone you trust is attracted to you. Someone you trust wants to be close to you. Someone you trust enjoys making you feel good. And you are allowed to believe what healthy behavior is showing you. So don't spend every intimate moment trying to see yourself through someone else's eyes. Come back to your own experience. What do you feel? What do you want? What makes you comfortable? What makes you feel connected? Those questions can transform intimacy from something you perform into something you experience. And if this conversation helped you look at your body, your relationship, or your own insecurities a little differently, take a moment to share this video with someone who might need to hear it. And I'd love to know in the comments, what surprised you most today? The psychology of giving pleasure, the role of self-consciousness, or the importance of communication? You don't have to share anything personal. Just tell me which idea changed your perspective. If you found this helpful, like the video, subscribe to Senior Mindful Living, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the next conversation. Because the more we understand our bodies and our relationships, the less power shame and insecurity have over us. You deserve intimacy that feels safe. You deserve communication that feels honest. You deserve a relationship where your pleasure matters too. And most importantly, you deserve to feel at home in your own body. I'll see you in the next video. Take care of yourself, be kind to yourself, and remember you are worth understanding, exactly as you are.